As the Easter Bunny hops down that journeyman's highway, and my wife graciously allows me to sneak away from the family to supply my loyal listeners with auditory excellence, it's calling all marks.
What?
Ladies and gentlemen, before you, we have the greatest
show
of all time. We have a man that in his own modest way can tell you...
I don't like it. I'm just telling you the truth.
You like it?
No! Listen to my fucking ranting. Listen to what you do to me. I don't believe you anymore.
Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in.
Hosted by
This guy that ran with every woman that would have him from the time he was 15. You like it?
Yeah.
You want one?
90,000 people watching. In my moment of glory. Yeah, no, I'm living a nightmare.
I don't trust you. The fucking up. You make me want to smoke. You fucked my damn...
Justin Draven.
Wow, Mr. Sarcasm.
When I made the joke that somebody was going to start stealing my ideas, I didn't think it was going to be you, homie. I come to you all tonight a scorned man. As I come to learn of this little punk trying to come into my lane. What are you laughing at? You think it's funny? Just like everybody else thinks it's funny that this little punk is trying to take over my idea. It's funny that someone's trying to do a new podcast and get personal with the listeners and try to hear about their stories and connect with them on that level. Wonder where he got that idea. Because I can guarantee you, if you look at the timestamps in the description of this very show, Calling All Marks, it lines up pretty good with the description of a certain show that'll be coming out soon. If you guys want to do some internet sleuthing and find out, that's on you. I'm not going to call them out quite yet because I have one in the chamber. If the show comes out and it's similar to mine, one, you'll know who did it first, and two, I'll finally cut a promo. I know you're waiting for that. And I'll have my little daughter set the bouquet herself at your funeral when I bury you. Not a physical burial. A verbal burial. Because you guys think I'm crazy. I'm sure you do. But I notice things. I notice them. And I noticed around the last episode that I released, I saw a funny little tweet saying someone was going to be doing a new show very similar to what I've been trying to do. Talk to the people themselves. Be very personable. Hear your stories. Learn a little bit about you. Now this is coming out? Am I fucking crazy? Am I in my feelings? Or is this a case of great minds think alike? Because there's plausible deniability. This punk released probably at 12:30 at night. Around exactly the same time. Maybe half hour after my half-hour video. I don't know. Makes sense. Off the Hop Rope liked my podcast. I know they're connected. Maybe he saw it from there. Like, this punk. This disrespectful punk. And you want to know who they are. I'm sure you do. Like I said, you go do the internet sleuthing. I already told you I'm not into the rumors and shit. I already told you what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build a community of like-minded fans who aren't obsessed with wrestling, but their lives intertwine with wrestling like mine does. Okay? I've already told you, I've loved wrestling since I don't even remember. My first earliest memory of wrestling is so long ago that it's probably one of my first memories. I got into it with my grandfather who had polio, He was confined to a hospital bed. He would get a visiting nurse that would come to him, and his arms and legs were bent. He didn't really talk. He would say a few things, so we didn't really communicate. I was a little kid, so we would watch wrestling, and that's how we communicated. So I love it, and that's a story that I was bringing to the podcast. I bring a lot of stories to the podcast, and they're not all individual wrestler stories because I don't know anyone in the industry. I don't know anyone in the system. I've done backyard wrestling. I've loved wrestling my whole life. I've done backyard wrestling. Like some crazy shit that I'm obviously going to get into eventually. Crazy shit that I'm surprised I'm still walking. Me and my friends are still walking. Then I did a little bit of pro training. I did a couple practice matches. You know what I mean? Broke a rib or two. Still went back. But then I had a family, and I had to support them, so I couldn't pay my dues. And after having a kid, I couldn't be one of these people that travel the road. So I have a lot of respect for these people, especially the ones with kids. But you gotta respect where I'm coming from. As a fan, not one of these crazy obsessed marks, not as a bitter ex-wrestler, not as a bitter never was anything. No, I made the choice to give it up because I loved my family more than I loved what I thought was my dream. Now maybe this is my dream, to build a community of inclusive, like-minded people. Talking to you. I won't even tell this person to stay in their own lane because I've been told to stay in my own lane. Why would you make a podcast no one's going to listen? You're probably right. But it would be something I would regret forever if I didn't try because it looked like fun. And I'm having a great time. Bringing unique, quirky, weird stuff to the show. I started with an ASMR intro in one of my videos. Like, that's different. You know what I mean? I told some sad stories. I think someone being bedridden with polio is very sad. It wasn't easy for him, and that's how we connected, was wrestling. So when I bring stuff like this to the podcast, which no other podcast really does, they talk at people, not to people. When I'm doing this, and I see that this punk decides they want to try to do the same thing and word it kind of differently to where, oh, well, I didn't say this or I didn't say that. But the common basis of the idea is there. Like, I'm trying to tell you stories that intertwine around my life in wrestling. It could be any story. My backyard days, how it pertains to my life now, whatever. There's no common thread in anything. If I decide I'm going to talk about something in the industry I don't like, that's what I'm going to talk about. If I decide I'm going to talk about how AEW is slacking in some departments, yeah, I'll call them out on that. I also praise them. I'm not biased to any person, company, entity. I'm loyal to me. I'm loyal to my friends. Try to do something different so I don't come off as just another typical wrestling podcast. Like, who starts a wrestling podcast with ASMR and then talks about movie posters and movie figures? All right, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast talks about wrestling figures and action figures and movie stuff like that. Okay, yeah, they do. But that's their whole gimmick. That's usually all they talk about. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm trying to say? They're not going to tell you that They didn't sleep for 3 days straight because they were having anxiety attacks about becoming a dad. I have yet to hear one wrestling podcaster, one wrestler even talk about how maybe one day their grandmother went to a high school wrestling event and got autographs from all the wrestlers because she didn't know that they weren't famous and tried to give them to you as a gift. They're not going to tell you that. But I'm going to tell you that. Because that's what I'm trying to do on this podcast, calling all marks. It's not anonymous. It's all out there. That's what I'm trying to do. Build a community like that. And so, when this person is going to release something that's very similar and probably do it to, I'm not going to say a corporate effect, but a watered down effect, an agenda effect. They're going to do it with an agenda to seem real. It's not real. They're stealing from the indies. They saw a podcast with 10 views that got tagged to all the people in the industry. All the internet wrestling sites, all the companies, all the wrestlers with a name. And I can guarantee it, that's where these little marks saw it. That's why I don't have any likes on my videos or comments. It's not regular people watching them, they're industry people watching them apparently. Because I've said a few things on this show and shit happens right after. I even made the joke someone was going to try to steal this format and I'm going to have to switch it up and do something else, which I could. But I don't want to because I started this and I'm not going to be seen as the fucking copycat. No. That's why I got one in the chamber, decimating you in your career. Trust me when I tell you this. So when this podcast comes out, if it's anything like what I've been trying to do here, you will hear my rebuttal. And I will call names. Let me tell you, I will drop a pipe bomb. So let that sink in. Let the fact that a nobody with no following is aware of what you're trying to do. And if I'm crazy or just in my feelings, you guys can let me know. And I will publicly apologize to this person when the time is right. But until then, I'm pretty sure this person got this idea from me. I'm pretty sure. I might have talked specifically about AEW or whatever in my first few videos. But that was to also get you in to talk about the other stuff. If you've noticed, my last video wasn't fully wrestling. This one isn't fully wrestling. The next one may not be fully wrestling. I told you I'm not looking to do that. At the time, AEW was doing some shit I didn't like, so I called them out on it. Also, my second video, I came to Brandy's defense because I'm sick of all these marks making all the racist and just nasty, disgusting comments about her pregnancy pictures. That was the first few. Because I knew people would click that if I did the clickbait titles. I'm not trying to do that. I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go with this. But I've figured it out. And I think I've explained it enough in a few of the videos that it's pretty abundantly clear now that this isn't just a wrestling podcast. This is about my life and how wrestling has played a part in it, basically. And if that's what you're into, I'm here to talk your ear off every time. If not, well, I'm sorry I'm wasting your time. But this isn't going to be like your What Cultures, your Cultaholics, your Brian Alvarez's, or even your Jim Cornettes. If there's a topic I think that's going to be cool to talk about, I'll talk about it. But other than that, I'm more into the, what song do you think this wrestler should get? Let me rattle off a list. I'll ask you guys what you think, or what fantasy wrestlers or what doppelgangers you'd like to see doing a match. That's the kind of stuff, like just real fan conversations, not this super mark stuff. I'm just trying to get my love for wrestling back and do like a radio show. That's kind of like my dream. So I'm doing both. Talking about my life, talking about wrestling. Talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the sad, the depressing. So when I see people come up with the idea after I had already put the work in to try to do something weird and creative, it kind of slights me. And like I've said before, I'm not a bitter person. I don't like to be bitter. I've been bitter before, and that's probably a different video. But I don't want to be known as the copycat if this guy comes out with this, because I will be known as the copycat because he's got a bigger name, knows people in the industry, so he's got a voice. So I would 100% be seen as a copycat. So I'm kind of trying to fight for that right now. I stake claim to I'm the first to do this one. And I feel as if you might have seen my podcast and thought you could improve on it. And in a way, I feel flattered that I inspired you. But I feel as if you might be ripping me off. And I gotta say it now. Because if a couple months from now, a couple weeks from now, let's say this episode even picks up some steam and then people go back and listen to my other stuff. And then I keep going off in this direction. And then you just drop your one episode. And then all of a sudden someone comes across my site or my page and like, oh, well, this guy does this already. But I've been steady doing this for months. I'm not there yet. I've only been at this a week. That's why I think it's funny and I might be a little crazy. But it was just a little too coincidental that the stuff I'm talking about and commenting, and when I'm tagging people and talking to people specifically and telling them about the podcast, I'm using very specific words. Very specific words. And I've actually gone back and listened to a few of the episodes. I haven't said them in the podcast. I said a few of them. But it's mainly when I'm tagging people and sharing them on these sites that I use these specific keywords. So I feel very slighted that someone might have a burner account out there and is ripping off ideas from content creators. Because this is the beauty about my format. I don't need a set topic. I can talk about anything. As long as it wraps around back to wrestling, which is what I've said I've been trying to do. It's not going to be strictly wrestling every day. I'll throw a few wrestling references in there. A couple stories, but I was never looking to do this to be like a again, a What Culture or a Cultaholic or a Wrestle Talk or a Wrestling with Regret. Even like the Brian Alvarez and the Dave Meltzers and the Jim Cornettes, they talk about stuff that's going on in wrestling. I don't want to do that because I don't like current wrestling. I pay attention. Some of it's good. That's why I said last week that AEW's show was great. When Fix-It Felix's mom came back, Fix-It Felix's Dynamite gal came back with her minivan. Helped out the good friends, or best friends. I saw it. I didn't like it. I'll talk about that. But it's not going to revolve around that stuff. I'm not going to talk about current stuff. I'm going to talk about stuff from the past. Wouldn't it have been cool if Roddy Piper actually did win a world title? Because I feel as if he deserved it. Actually, speaking of Roddy Piper, I'm very depressed about this because I think my mother threw it out on me, not knowing what it was. I had this stack of autographed pictures. Roddy Piper, Dusty Rhodes, Ted DiBiase, Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter. I think there was a Tatanka in there. Just a bunch of classic guys. And they get thrown out. That's not a sad story. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I'm rambling. Like I said, there's no format, so I can talk about anything. And that's just what I think is coming on down the line from this fucking punk that I might have words for soon. Not sure. Like I said, please, I know you guys are going to do the internet sleuthing and all that good stuff. You'll probably find out who it is. And if you do, when you do, or if the show comes out first before mine starts picking up any traction, but I think it's already picking up traction because, let me spoil something for you. I'm being followed by a fucking radio legend. I don't know if it's because of the podcast. I'm sure it ain't because I say funny shit on fucking Twitter. I'm not that entertaining. I mean, I'm pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. I am pretty funny. But I don't know. I know Chris Jericho's liked a few of my tweets. Responded to them. Maybe that's how I popped up on this person's radar. I know I've tagged AEW. I know I've tagged Impact, Ring of Honor. I've tagged Jim Cornette, Wrestling with Regret, What Culture, Cultaholic. I've tagged specific wrestlers. So I know this person has seen it. And like I said, he probably listened, thought he could do this better. But mine's real. That's what mine is. Mine's real. I'm genuinely looking for real fans. I'm genuinely looking to start conversations with people about their lives and their journeys with wrestling. That's what I started this to do. I'm in it to find people who like wrestling and who aren't necessarily obsessed with today's wrestling. I like to have conversations about, like what I said, what if Roddy Piper really won a world title? What if Batman was in a Royal Rumble with all of his rogues? My money would probably be on Bane, because Bane is a wrestler and he's beaten the shit out of Batman before. Now, Batman's my favorite character, but I gotta be unbiased. Bane is a beast. Bane fucked him up. Bane would probably win in that Royal Rumble because he's going to break the Joker. I'm not even talking about any of the chicks because I'm not into Speaking of intergender wrestling, okay, I have a question. There's a particular wrestler on the main roster of a certain company who happens to be transgender, which is fine. I'm not even against that. What I am against is the fact that they are strictly wrestling biological women. I thought this company was going to be new and edgy and what everyone was looking for. If they were trying to impress me with this particular character, this person, they would be wrestling men and women. Because you can't be a beast and a known transgender and then just beat up women. Because I'm not in it. I don't like the whole MMA fighter that's cracking chicks' skulls. But my whole beef with it is we all know that they're a transgender person. If they win the match, they're beating up a 95-pound woman. If they lose the match, they lost to a 95-pound woman. Get them out there fighting the men as well. Have this person dominate a few of the people on Dark or Elevation. Then you wouldn't be classified as some social justice warrior pandering, because that's what I see that as. And I'm not trying to draw up heat. I'm just being real. That's what I think should happen. I'm not against their way of life, the way that they choose to live, the choices that they make. I am not at all against that. Not at all. But be realistic about it. I don't want to see you just fighting women, biological women. I'd like to see you get in there and mix it up with the biological men as well. And that's just being real. And again, I know I'm jumping around, but that's the format I can have on my show. This show. Not another show that's coming out from someone else who's going to have an agenda to try to seem like they're very creative. I'm not even saying I'm very creative. I just think I brought something different that this fucking punk picked up on. And I want him to know that I picked up on you. Happy Easter.